Okay, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook, we're live on Instagram. Fliss. Shh.
Okay.
It's all right for 5 minutes. Okay, guys, this is going to be Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1 with me and my broom and some bits of string. Knot tying it's going to be, but at the moment it's not 4 o'clock yet, so the stream is just open so that I know everything is working. If you've got kids at home and they are driving you mental and you've almost ripped their heads off, then if they're remotely interested in getting a very basic skill in life, which I think is really important for men and women, boys and girls, everywhere in the world, in every walk of life, to be able to tie a knot is one of the basics in life. So grab your family members if you think they were interested in. There is a room that this broom is duct taped to the side of the cabinet. You have still got, how long have we got? 5 minutes. 5 minutes until we start. 4 o'clock. Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1. You have tuned in a little bit early, but that's all good for the anticipation, eh?
What's that?
The cheaping in the background. Lesson hasn't started yet, by the way. This isn't.
Is the fish dead?
No, the fish isn't dead. It's my niece in the background. The cheaping in the background is that we're. I don't know whether you can see this. We're incubating eggs, and the first egg is just hatched today, which is so cool, isn't it? So we're going to get little chicks, and then chickens, and then food.
Don't eat rat.
Right, you've still got. Do not panic. You are not. If you are preparing for this lesson and you come on, you're super keen because it's knots lesson, Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1 knots. Get yourself a bit of cordage. Either you've got a bit of old climbing rope, great. If you've got a bit of paracord, fantastic. Or if you've just simply got a little bit of string, get a bit of string. Need something to practice on. If you don't have something to practice on, then you're going to struggle. Okay, all you need is a little bit of string and maybe be in your kitchen so that you can tie onto stuff maybe, but that's not really that relevant. Just a bit of string. Bless you, live on 3 channels. Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. Couple of minutes. Have you got your bit of string? Have you got a bit of cordage, a bit of paracord, a bit of rope, or a bit of string? If you haven't, go and get one now because we're not going to actually start the knot tying for another few minutes. So, so get that sorted. Get yourself a bit of string, and then as soon as it turns 4 o'clock, we're going head to head with Ben Fogel. Bit of an error on my behalf. Sorry, Ben. But you'll get far more views than me anyway, so don't worry, mate. Oh, dear. What time is it?
Someone said not to eat the rats because there's now a disease. I don't know where from, but someone said don't eat rats.
2 minutes. 2 minutes, everyone. If you've tuned into Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1, knot tying, it is going to happen. Bang on 4 o'clock.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Good.
Thursday and not tomorrow. Because we're ready for it tomorrow. Now.
Tomorrow's good.
Tomorrow's good. Coming into Thursday. Have you tried?
If you've tuned in and you're wondering what is going on, it's because it's not 4 o'clock yet and this lesson hasn't started yet. So this is going to be Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1. If you haven't got a bit of string and you're tuned in and your kid, or you've just stumbled across this and your kids are driving you mental, or your husband's driving you mental, or your wife is driving you mental. If anybody is driving you mental on lockdown and you need something to do, something to distract them, and you want it to be something positive and wholesome, something that you're going to learn from, fingers crossed, knot tying is not my massive forte, got to be honest, then tune in, because it's a skill that everybody needs, don't they? You know, if you can't tie a knot, it's just like, Really?
I can't tie
How close are we? 1 minute. 1 minute till the beginning of the lesson.
Lots of people from the place with the flag with the red and
Are you going to just keep talking to me while the lesson's on as well?
No. I have a minute to get all my natter out.
Do. 1 minute till not tying lesson, okay. The thing about doing it all on your phone is you can't turn all these notifications off, can you? Quite a lot of Turkish flags going up there.
Oh, I'm from Turkey.
Quite a lot of Brazilian flags. Hi to everyone in Turkey, Istanbul. Having more followers in Istanbul than any other place. Right, it is now 4 o'clock. And if you're Ben Fogel, I totally apologise because you're doing Tales of the Wilderness in a very posh accent and you're competing head to head with me, which you must be really sweating. This is simply me deciding that I want to help and do my little bit in terms of giving people something to focus on while they're on lockdown. Last night in the UK, if you're watching and you live in the UK, our Prime Minister came on and basically up the ante in terms of what we're all doing in terms of trying to curb the spread of coronavirus. We're pretty much, as a nation, on lockdown now. Only essential travel. You can go out to go on a run, which is also deemed to be something that which is allowable, and you have to either go with someone in your own house or you go on your own. And that's a good thing. I would recommend that. Everyone's going a little bit stir crazy already. Me and my wife have had arguments this morning, and that is just because you're going to get on top of each other, aren't you? So you do need little distractions, little things to help you. So don't think it's selfish to go out on a run. It is not selfish at all. You'll come back in a much better place, and you'll be a better father or husband or wife or whatever you are. Okay, kitchen bushcraft lesson 1. This is meant to be able to do with all you need is bare hands, half a brain, and a bit of string. Ideally, it's not rubbish string, I'm not snob when it comes to string, but if you've got paracord, that would be wonderful. Paracord is quite good. And if you've got an old bit of climbing rope, wow, then you're probably a climber and you know far more about knots than me. But get yourself something. We're not going to actually start tying knots for a couple of minutes at least. So get yourself a bit of string so you can actually take part in this. And the way to remember knot tying is to actually physically do it. Obviously, it's all well and good listening to me and watching me tie a knot. But if you've got the string in front of you and you can actually copy me and do it, then that's where it's going to sink in. Why is it important that we are able to tie knots? If you remotely think that it's important in life to have a sort of a varied skill set, I would say that knot tying is right up there as one of the things that you need to have a basic understanding of and a basic competency in. As a explorer / survival person on telly, if I didn't know any knots, I wouldn't be able to build a shelter. I wouldn't be able to tie my hammock up. I wouldn't be able to put up a tarpaulin. I wouldn't be able to put loads of bags and pelly cases on the roof of a Land Rover and haul it across and do them up really tight. You just need to be able to tie basic knots. And in this lesson, I'm just going to cover the basic 4. There's so many different fancy knots in the world, and I'm going to cover 4. 3 of them, which I think are super basic, and 1 I'm going to add, which is a trucker's hitch, which is a hitch, not a knot, if I'm being really pedantic. But it's a super hitch to learn, and it's very, very helpful, not just for tying stuff on trucks, but for putting any amount of torsion into stuff. Advanced knots, we might well go on to this. It depends how popular the live streaming lesson is. We can go on to lashings. We can go on to much more advanced knots. We can go on to indigenous knots that you can do with vines and stuff like that. But for the moment, we're just going to start with basic knots. Okay, has everyone got a bit of string? Oh, I can't hear you. Has everyone got a bit of string? Right, okay. First knot we're going to do is a reef knot. And believe it or not, please excuse me for the terrible state at the end of this rope. But can I say this live on social media? Yeah, I probably can. Right, one of the competitors that I've had on First Man Out, and that means there's been 12 so far because we've filmed 2 series, could not tie a reef knot. I think that's extraordinary. they won't get embarrassed. I'm not gonna mention who that was, but you don't want to be tying a granny knot. A granny knot is a reef knot tied wrong. Okay, so the way that the Cub Scouts certainly used to teach a reef knot, and a reef knot is for joining two bits of rope together. Okay, that's basically all it is. It's joining two bits of rope together. And the way the Cub Scouts used to do it was right over left, and then left over right. Okay, and I'm going to slow this down massively, but I'm just going to show you the knot first of all. That is the knot that we're aiming for. It's a beautiful knot. You might have seen it. It's used on lots of logos and stuff like that. And that is the knot that we're after. And essentially, if you pull it apart, you can see it's just two loops. It's an incredibly simple and wonderful knot if you're geeky about knots, which I'm not actually. The way my dad used to teach it is you start as if you're doing up your shoelaces. So you just do that first bit as if you're doing up your shoelaces. And then he just said the one that's on top stays on top and goes underneath. Okay, so you can see that one of these two bits, as you're looking at it, that one looks like it's on top, but from my perspective, this one is on top, this one is underneath. So the one that's on top stays on top and then goes underneath, and that allows you to do a reef knot. So it's either right over left and left over right, or it's start like you're tying your shoelaces, and then it's the one that's on top stays on top and goes underneath, and that's a reef knot. What you're trying not to do is a granny knot. So I'll do it deliberately wrong just to demonstrate a granny knot. So that's the beginning of your shoelaces. So the one that's on top, I'm going to put that underneath now, and then go over, and then you get that's horrible, isn't it? That is just disgusting. That is like the worst horrible granny knot you've ever seen. In fact, if my granny did that, she's dead now, unfortunately, but if she did, I would not be impressed. Boom. Okay, so has everyone been practicing this? Don't just like watch this and laugh at me like my niece who's laughing in the background. But this is you can just, after this you'll be able to get, even if this is the one knot you're going to learn today, reef knot. Yeah, okay, so start like your shoelaces, tying your shoelaces, one that's on top stays on top and goes underneath, and then you have a reef knot, or left over right, right over left. Beautiful knot. Okay, obviously, although this is live, it will be saved to each one of the individual social media channels, so you can rewatch it if you want to relearn. But very, very simple knot, and the reason you would use a reef knot is to join two bits of rope together, ideally two bits of rope that are the same size. Okay, so that was a reef knot. And that is it's Billy Basics, really. The second knot, which is my favourite knot in the world, and I've used it on so many things. On Olarua, which was the island that I had to survive on for 60 days naked, and my golly, that was a experience and a half. I think it would be fair to admit that it was the hardest thing, the most intense thing I've ever done in my life. But I had to literally strip it down to basics. I had to, on the first day, my head was spinning like crazy. And I had to just think, what do I need to do to survive day one on this island on my own? And the only thing I thought I needed to do on day one was to drink coconut water. And I could just literally lie on the beach and drink coconut water. And yet even getting a coconut down out of a coconut tree became this massive task. So it was bringing it all down to absolute basics. And I think that applies, doesn't it, when we're going through a crisis like this? It's so difficult to not get overwhelmed by the enormity of what's happening at the moment. And you can't let that happen. You can't let your thoughts and your fears and your anxieties race away. You have to step back and just look, basics. All right, let's have a cup of tea. Okay, let's sit down. Are you okay? I'm okay. Look at each other. I think it's really important. Look at each other in the eyes every morning. All of your family members, look at them in the eye and go, you okay? And if they're looking down, if they're looking away, then you know that you need to give them a bit of TLC. You need to pay them a bit more attention. Okay, we're doing a knot lesson, not a therapy session. Thanks, Liz. Right, okay. We are going on to the clove hitch, which is my favourite knot in the world. Clove hitch, again, it's just, there's two ways to tie this, and one's fun and the other one's a bit boring. But I'll do the fun one first. So you make a loop. Okay, so you've got your bit of paracord. What do people in the parachute regiment, do they call paracord cord? or do they still call it paracord? I don't know. Okay, so you make a loop like that. You make a second loop, and then you put the second one behind or under the first one, and this is why I've got a broom duct taped to the kitchen counter, is that is then your clove hitch. And this is a fantastic knot for so many things. It's unbelievable how often I've used this knot. It works with vine, it works with natural cordage, it works with all sorts of things because it is so simple. There's no sharp angles, and because it's all flowing around the same way, it's a super knot, and it works based on friction rather than the actual knot. The knot itself isn't terribly fancy. It's just it's the friction of the two bands of cordage going all the way around that's doing the job, that's stopping you being able to pull it off. So let me show you that again. A clove hitch is one loop like that, two loops like that. Put the second loop. Okay, so you're going that hand over. I'm just going to do this really carefully. Then that hand over. So you've got that. One goes behind the other. Put it over your item. Pull it tight. You've got a clove hitch. There is a second way of tying a clove hitch. Imagine that this pole goes all the way up to the ceiling and that you can't physically get the clove hitch onto the, onto the top. You might have to actually physically tie it. So you go round again, but importantly, you cross over the first thing. And then on the third pass, rather than just going over like that, you put the loose end underneath that cross that you've just made for yourself, okay? And then I've got this right. Yeah, you've got your clove hitch again. Okay. So again, a fantastic. I've used this knot so many times, and the reason that I'm just teaching these basic 4 knots is that you don't need fancy ones. You can do so many things with basic knots. Okay, so second way of learning a clove hitch. If we couldn't just slip it over the top, or if you're finding that one difficult, you might well be. You go around. You go around again, and hold on. I need the loose end to be this way. Okay, so you go around again, and you can see, can you see? Yeah, you can see that crossover. And where the crossover is, I'm getting myself in a bit of a pickle here because that one's tied off to the chair. Okay, and then you've got your clove hitch. For some reason, I've tied it so that that end is tied to the chair, but don't worry about it. Okay, so again, that's a clove hitch. Again, if you want to replay this video, it will be saved on the social media channels later. But those are the 2 methods of tying a clove hitch. I would say a clove hitch is the thing I do more of than any other knot. Another knot, which is, let's say you are going on a jungle expedition and you want to tie your hammock to a tree and you don't want it to fall down. You do, I would say, a round turn and 2 half hitches. So imagine that this is the hammock and I've just got the loose end of the cord and I want to tie it to the tree. This is the tree here. So I then go round the tree once, and that isn't a full turn. A full turn is going all the way around. So it actually looks like it's got 2 bits of string there, but that is called a round turn. And then a hitch. A hitch is not a proper knot. A hitch is just a hitch. You literally bring it there. You've created a little space. If you were to look down, there's a little space in there. So you go under, and then come down. So you go under this wire, this line, and go down for it, and then pull that tight. And then the second one, you can go over and under, or under and over. It really doesn't matter. And then you pull that tight. And then the strength in this knot is again friction around the so it's your round turn that is the thing that's holding the knot tight. The hitches are literally to stop the whole thing moving, and they're not actually load bearing, which means that even if you're sitting in the hammock and putting huge amounts of weight on them, that you can untie this knot because they're not tightening under the pressure, because the pressure is actually being the weight of your big fat body is being taken by the friction of the rope going around the tree rather than the hitches themselves. Now, if you want to be a little bit fancy, and this is me talking, so it's not very fancy, you once you go round, and that's not enough round, that wouldn't hold. So by round turn, we pretty much mean 2 round turns actually. We've done 2. You can see that there's 2 bits of cordage there. We then cross over, and I can see I've made myself a little triangle. So I've gone underneath, so I'm going to come down through that little triangle. Okay, then I'm going to pull it tight, and then I can either go under and over, or I can go over and under. It really doesn't matter. It's another hitch. But what I'm going to do, and let's show you this very slowly. What I'm going to do is, rather than pull the whole length through, I'm just going to put it on a bite. And by putting it on a bite, I mean that I pulled half of it through. I've pulled a bite through. I've pulled some of the cordage through, but I could do the knot normally and pull the whole lot through. But this enables it to be a quick release. So walking the Amazon 860 days, every single time I tied either the 4 corners of my basher to trees to put it up, or my hammock to trees to again string it up, I did a round turn, 2.5 hitches, second hitch on a bite, so that I can just then pull it like that, and the whole thing comes undone. Okay, and that is super good for tying things off to trees if it's going to be load bearing and you want to be able to undo it. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do in terms of the 4 basic knots. So I've done reef knot. For it to go into your brain, maybe I will do it all again right at the end of the live stream. We will just very quickly go through everything again. But we've done a reef knot so far. We've done a clove hitch. We've done a round turn and 2.5 hitches. The last knot that we're going to do is a trucker's hitch. Now, a trucker's hitch is not as stereotypically taught by the Boy Scouts, but it is such a good knot. You might use a trucker's hitch anytime that you want real tension. You want to really crank things tight. And if you were to do a reef knot, it would you'd be able to join it and it would just sag and it would be a bit rubbish. Okay. Now, the trucker's hitch is beautiful. Basically, you take your bit of string here. You do a loop, and then this is the loose end that was just towards me. You do the loose end. So one end of your rope is tied off. At the one side maybe of the on the other side of the car, you brought the rope over all the packs, and you want to tie it off on your side. So you make a little loop, and then you pull a bite through it. You see that? You make a little loop, again, just like that, and you pull a bite through it, and you take the bite out of the loose end. You don't take the bite out of the fixed end. Okay. So once you've got that, you then go around whatever it is that you need to go around. In my case, the old broom handle. And then I'm not going to put it that tight because the chair will move and the broom handle will move. But you can put so much tension on that now. You can really start cranking it up, which means all the packs will get, if they're nice, compressible expedition packs, will get nice and squidged down. And then all you need to do to tie it off is literally put one hitch with a bite on there. So you then can pull it. It's quick release. And all I've done is I made that, come round, come back through. So you've created this this amazing tensioning sort of pulley system, and then you just put a bite on it. And then that is beautiful. So it's quick release, and you can crank it up so tight, it's unbelievable. So that is a trucker's hitch, and you would use that if you're trying to get something super, super tight. Okay, so we have done, just to recap for those at the back, everyday tit for tat. If you're going to join 2 bits of rope, roughly the same, then it's right over left, left over right. This is called a reef knot, yes. The way my dad used to teach it, you start as if you're doing the shoelaces up, and then the one that's on top, which is that one, stays on top, and then goes underneath. And then you create that absolutely classic knot, and you can see it's a beautiful knot. What it is not is a granny knot. which is, yeah, again, ugly. It's not a granny knot. Okay, so that's a reef knot. Second one we did was a clove hitch. Clove hitch, the most used knot that I have in my armory. Do it so I can put it over the pole. Make 2 hoops, second hoop behind the first. I mean, it's so quick, it's so easy, and it's a brilliant way of attaching, and it works really well on natural cordage and vines and stuff like that if you've not got any string and you're having to improvise. Third knot was a round turn, 2 half hitches. Don't make the mistake of tying it off there. You need to go all the way around again. So it's almost a 2 round turns and 2 half hitches. A hitch is simply going over the static line with the free line and pulling it through the little gap, and then doing the same thing again. And you don't have to pull the whole end through. You could just put it on a bite. And if you put it on a bite like that, it's quick release. You can pull it, and that one can be loaded with your body pressure if you're sleeping in your hammock or something like that, and it's still really quick and easy to undo. And then the final one that we did was a trucker's hitch. So a trucker's hitch is making a loop. This is the free end of the string, making yourself a little bite. That's a big bite, but it doesn't matter. It works for the purposes of this. Go round whatever it is you're going round, and then go back through that loop. And then you could, I'm telling you can put so much tension on this. Those tensioned hammocks that go between 3 trees that normally require a ratchet strap. I put one up just using trucker's hitches, and it was tense enough to allow me to sleep on it all night. They are so good at what they do, and they're such a simple knot. And then you just put a little hitch with a bite on there, so it's quick release, and you can take that down. Okay, so that's your 4 basic knots, basically. Knots were the sort of stereotypical subject at Scouts, which people took the mickey out of each other for. Dib, dib, dib. You got your knot tying badge, and yet I'm now an ambassador for the Scouts, and lo and behold, I'm here teaching knot tying on 4 o'clock on an afternoon to keep people entertained when they're on lockdown. It's a skill which is not vital in life. You can get by without tying any knots, but there's just a level of competency, isn't there, that if you go into a situation, say your car breaks down, you want to tie your car onto another car, and you don't know how to tie knots, you're just going to have to go around so many times, because in your head you don't know about knots, and you don't know about what's going to hold and what's not going to hold, and you just look totally incompetent. And then when you come to untie it, that's the big thing. You've just got a mess, and you've gone over it so many times, and you can't untie it, and it's not very professional, and it isn't. You don't look terribly competent. So knot tying is a really, really good skill. That's it for today. If you found this valuable at all, if you want me to continue, ideally on a subject which has got a little bit more va-va-voom to it than knot tying, I quite like firelighting, but you're not wanting to influence anybody. But it has to be a kitchen type stuff. So if it's firelighting, it's on a very, very small scale. It's contained. I'm not quite sure how we can do that, but we will make it work. Kitchen Bushcraft Lesson 1 is over. Have a good day. I hope things are going well for you. It's very normal, I think. I'm just going to say at the end of this, because mental health is actually the thing that I feel is the most important thing to give advice on at the moment. If you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, if you're feeling a little bit down, if you feel like the rest of the country is all kicking into action and actually you feel rubbish, don't worry about it. I did this morning, felt absolutely terrible. Wasn't a very good husband to Laura. We just wasn't very supportive. Snapped at Ran a couple of times, and I think for me the thing that helped me was going out on a run. We're allowed to do that even if you're on lockdown. You're allowed to go out and get some exercise. Not only do you feel much better, your brain's got more clarity, but you've got a bit of perspective from the family. You physically got outside and away from those 4 walls that you've been confined in. So yeah, please give me feedback. Tell me whether you like that. Tell me whether it was pitched at the right level. Tell me whether you would like other subjects taught. And and if indeed you do, then we shall see each other soon. Cheers, guys.
It's really hot. You're basically red raw.
Well, very well.